Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
And good morning, Cayman. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orit O.C. Connor this beautiful Monday morning here in the Cayman Islands. I'm so happy for those of you who are out there listening this morning from Kimmenbrack to Grand Cayman. We're going to invite you to be giving us some calls in just a little bit. Those numbers to give us calls at are toll-free of Lime, 1-800-534-8255, or you can give us a call as well as 949-8037. This morning we have some very important things to talk about. We're going to begin with Heroes Day 2016. Yes, in fact, the Ministry of Health, Sports and Culture are going to be very busy and have been very busy getting this ball rolling for the 2016 Heroes Day Awards. The theme next year is going to be on agriculture. And here to talk about it this morning is the Chief Officer for the Ministry of Sports, Health and Culture, Miss Jennifer Ahern. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Donna. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. Good morning to everybody listening.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you here, Jennifer, as always. So we want to talk about Heroes Day. This is a very, very important event for the country. It allows us to not only have a day off, but it allows us to come out and celebrate our heroes. In particular, next year it's going to be about agriculture. Tell us how that theme was brought about.
Well, every year when we have the various awards, or the awards for Heroes Day, Cabinet decides on a theme. And we've had a number of themes over the years. We had celebrating our pioneers in education. We had aviation. We had our Christian heritage. Youth services was another one that we've had. Our cultural heritage was another one. And then last year we had health services. Mm-hmm. So for next year, for 2016, Cabinet decided that they wanted to celebrate our pioneers in agriculture. And it ties in really well with a lot of initiatives that the Ministry of Agriculture has been working on under the Minister, Kurt Tibbetts. So 2016 is going to be a really exciting year in the area of agriculture. And Cabinet thought a great way to kick it off would be to have that as the theme for Heroes Day.
We actually spoke, we being CIGTV, spoke with Minister Kurt Tibbetts last week, who credited the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Sam Rose, for being one of the idea pushers for the farming community. And he talked a little bit about the importance of our farming community, both past, present, and future. How important do you think agriculture is to our islands at this stage in development that we're at?
I think it's incredibly important. It's a really evolving and developing area for the islands, and Minister Tibbetts and the Department of Agriculture, the Agriculture Society, they've been working really hard to help promote agriculture locally. We're seeing it increasingly. You've got the market at the grounds, you've got the farmers market at Cayman Bay. We have the market at the pit at the cricket grounds that's opening up very soon. I can't remember the date. Was Minister Tibbetts said October, November?
Yes.
So you can, and you're seeing more and more. You've got farm to table movements happening in local restaurants as well. You're seeing more local produce. And one of the things that the Ministry of Agriculture is working on for next year is a food and nutrition security policy. And obviously, as Minister Tibbetts said in the press conference last week, the day that the boat or the plane can't get here, it's important that we are able to provide for ourselves as well in that event, and that we're planning for those sorts of things. So it's really increasingly, we're seeing more and more the importance of agriculture, and we're seeing more and more people not only practicing it, but embracing it by supporting the local farmers.
Okay. Well, also joining us this morning is Nancy Bernard. She's the Deputy Chief Officer for the Ministry of Health, Culture and Sports. Welcome to the show this morning, Nancy.
Good morning. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your role in getting the plans underway for our National Heroes Day next year.
I'm part of the committee, and we have a lot of people from various districts around the island, all three islands actually. And for me, the interesting part is the cultural heritage aspect. In other words, what makes us different as a country, as a territory, is that we have offerings in agriculture, in the field of agriculture, that are different than any other territory in the world. And I think the fact that we were so isolated for so long, and that we had to depend heavily on farming the sea products, means that our story of agriculture is a little bit different than others. So that's sort of what I bring to the table and what I'm most interested in.
So when you say different, for our listeners out there, what do you mean by different? How different are we?
Well, I think we were one of the first countries that was globalized before globalization became sort of the key word in the last couple of decades, because most of the menfolk had to go out to sea and had to eke out a living around the world. And then that also made life for women quite different, because women then had to hold down the fort. I think a large percentage, I'm not sure the exact percentage, but a large percentage of them had to hold down the fort and run things here. So that in itself is quite interesting. And then what it was that people farmed, what it was that people had to do to keep pests away, like mosquitoes that apparently used to clog the nostrils of cows and have them die in the fields because they were so bad in those days, which then speaks to MRCU and the importance of the work that they do. So there's just a lot of different aspects of our heritage that we can learn when we start identifying pioneers.
So Jennifer, you mentioned the fact that we have like Market at the Grounds at Cayman Bay, at Lower Valley, and other things are springing up all over the place. And we have the market, the actual farmers market that's coming back, which I know a lot of people are really, really excited about. What would you say to people out there who want to get involved in the agriculture industry from that perspective? How would you encourage them to really go about being a part of what really needs to become sustainable, a sustainable industry for us at some point?
Yeah, I think, if you're interested in getting involved and finding out more about it, there's a couple of places that they can go. There's the Agriculture Society, which of course are really active and responsible for the Ag Show every year, which follows pretty quickly on the heels of Heroes Day next year, because Easter's early. And also the Department of Agriculture. They do some fantastic work to help support local farmers and help them, those who want to become more active in agriculture, to get some support, some technical support and so on to move forward. So we have a lot of resources here, actually, a lot more probably than people realize in terms of assisting people who are interested in or who are active in agriculture.
Now, the key to really getting our heroes nominated for this particular National Heroes Day in 2016 is to involve the public. And last week, you guys launched the nomination process. Tell us about that process. Well,
we are asking the public to help us identify the people that should be recognized for their contributions in agriculture. We started the public nomination process a few years ago, and we've had some really great response from the public on that. So the nomination period is September 1st to 30th. It's the month of September. It seems a bit early, given that Heroes Day is not until the end of January. But we need to get the names in so that we have a committee that assesses the nominations and makes the recommendations in terms of who should be recognized and honored. And the committee needs to get the names to the protocol office by the 1st of November, because Melanie Sims and her team at the protocol office then have a lot of work to do in terms of contacting the people who've been selected, making the plans for the day and getting everything ready. So we need the public to help us out by making nominations, and letting us know who they think should be recognized for their contribution to agriculture. And it runs until the 30th of September. And there's a few ways that you can get the nomination form. You can go to the ministry's website, which is www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky. You can send us an email at NHD, for National Heroes Day, at gov.ky, or you can pick up a nomination form in the government admin building or the post offices.
Okay. So Nancy, let's talk a little bit about the criteria for the person that you can nominate. By the way, can you nominate more than one person?
Yes. In fact, we're saying one of the things we've found in the past years is that people think somebody else was going to nominate them. Oh, they thought their sister or brother was going to nominate auntie whoever. But then nobody does. And so every year there's a few people that, that probably miss the boat because of this. But no, please nominate as many people as possible, even if you think, you're not quite sure, have they been pioneering in some way? Because there are other categories, such as Long Service Award, that people can fit into if they're not necessarily slotting into the pioneer category. So really, what we're not looking for is heroes. The heroes, there are only a handful of special heroes for the Cayman Islands that have been identified. What we're looking for is pioneers, people that pushed the envelope, people that really started something new and maybe suffered some hardship to get there to create something new for Cayman. So the criteria is just basically any age. It could be old to young. And we have an emerging pioneer category, which is interesting because it's for the ones that are coming up. Is it post what's the year?
It's since 2005.
Since 2005. So they may not have done a lot compared to some of the more recent, the older pioneers, but they're doing a lot of interesting things with the field, and so they should also be recognized. So it's wide open, all ages, all nationalities, people that are helping out in Cayman with agriculture.
All right, we're going to get back into the specifics and delve a little bit deeper into that right after this break here on For the Record. Remember, you can give us a call and ask our guests questions or give them recommendations or make your comments. The numbers to call, again, complimentary of line, 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037. We'll be back with more in just a few minutes. Good morning again, Cayman. I'm Donna Bush in this Monday morning for Mr. Ord O.C. Connor. If you're just joining us, I'm so happy that you're able to tune in with us this morning. I have two lovely women here in the studio with us today to talk about National Heroes Day 2016. They're from the Ministry of Health, Sports and Culture. I have Miss Jennifer Ahern and Mrs. Nancy Bernard. Ladies, thanks again for joining us. So before we went to the break, we were talking about the various categories that persons can nominate other persons for who are within the agriculture industry. Let's delve a little bit more into that and explain to our listeners out there exactly what some of those categories are and what it actually means.
Yeah, I think first we just want to talk about what it is, how we're defining agriculture.
Right.
So what it is we're looking for people to nominate people for. And the definition that the committee has come up with is the science and or practice of farming, including the growing of crops and the rearing of animals, to provide food, fiber, and other products used to sustain and enhance human life. So that's the definition of agriculture that we're using for the purposes of these awards. We were talking before the break. We have basically 5 categories of awards. We have 3 that are in pioneers, and then we have a long service award and a memorial scroll. So I'll talk a little bit about the pioneers and then maybe get Nancy to jump in on the other ones. But the different categories within the pioneer category are based on when their contribution was made. So Nancy was mentioning before the break, we're looking for a pioneer, somebody who's made a significant contribution, somebody who's done something extraordinary, exceptional, who's really, it's somebody who comes to mind when you think about agriculture as somebody who's really helped move it forward, who has pioneered a different method maybe in agriculture. And we're looking for people to help us identify those people who've made those kinds of contributions. The early pioneer category is somebody who's made that significant contribution before 1960. Okay, so we're looking for early pioneers who've made a significant contribution prior to 1960. These individuals will be recognized at Heroes Day, which is Monday, January 25th. Everybody can mark their calendars for that. And they get a commemorative insignia, which I refer to as a pin, but Melanie in the protocol office is trying to teach me up on that, a commemorative insignia, as well as a certificate. The next category we have is for pioneers. Now, the pioneers are somebody who've made their contribution between 1960 and 2005. Okay. And like the early pioneers, they get recognized with a commemorative insignia and a certificate. Mm-hmm. Now, the number of honorees with those two categories combined, the early pioneers and pioneers, we try and limit that to 50.
Okay.
So there's a restriction on the number of people honored in those categories. And then the emerging pioneer, Nancy talked about that earlier, that's somebody who's made a significant contribution from 2005 to today. Okay. So a little more recently. And we put this category in as an opportunity to recognize those people who are sort of up and coming and to encourage them to continue. Okay. To make their contributions. So those are the pioneer categories. Again, it's people who've made a significant contribution, something extraordinary, outstanding, unusual, that's really helped to move the Cayman Islands forward in the area of agriculture. And maybe Nancy can talk about the other.
If we could just stick a pin and have Nancy wait just a moment, because we do have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Welcome to For the Record. Do you have a question or comment for the ladies this morning?
I certainly do. Thank you, Ms. Donna, for taking my call. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm good, Quincy. How are you this Monday morning?
Doing very well. Good morning, Mrs. Bernard. Good morning, Mrs. Ahern.
Good morning, Quincy.
Good morning, Quincy.
Let me be brief and get right to the point and not long-winded. I think this is going to be quite a very good exercise in that so many of our people have contributed to agriculture. The challenge, though, is how many can we nominate? Because we're coming from a time where everybody had a ground. Everybody had a ground up atop the bluff or in their backyard and whatnot. And, of course, great persons such as Merturito Chantolo comes to mind, who's been awarded numerous awards over the years. So how do we just pick 5 or pick 10 when I'm coming from an era where hundreds of men would have farmed because it was the way of living. It was the culture of the day. You know, I think of persons like Desmond Martin. I think of persons like Lewin Brown, and the list goes on. Uncle Leon, Stene, and oh, good God, everyone had a ground. That's my point. So, and the question would be then is, will the insignia be given posthumously as well? Yes?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. There are so many people who've made contributions. It's going to be, the committee is going to have a really tough job because we're counting on people like you, Quincy, to give us as many nominations as you possibly can. But the thing I guess I would say is that we're looking for somebody who's pioneering for these categories, for the pioneer categories. So it's not just somebody who's been very active in farming and has done farming or agriculture for a long time. With the categories of pioneer, we're looking for people who've done something significant, made a pioneering contribution. The other two categories that we have are the Memorial Scroll and the Long Service Award, and that's where we might recognize somebody who's just, the Long Service Award made a long-standing contribution. And in terms of the question of whether the recognition will be awarded posthumously, yes, absolutely, will be.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it for me. I just want to say congratulations to Miss Nancy. Of course, Nancy needs to be congratulated because it's her illustration that we see in the book, The 1932 Storm.
That's right.
Thank you, Quincy, as always. So, Nancy, we were talking about the various categories, and Jen had touched on those for us. Can you continue with
Yes,
the
of
others?
course. I think as Jennifer said, and actually as Quincy raised, everybody had a ground in those days. And I think he hit the nail on the head. The fact is that everyone was doing it, so not everyone was pioneering. Everyone was doing it as a matter of course. So it's somebody who came up with something, something unusual to keep the pests like the mosquitoes away, something unusual to trade with our neighboring countries or something. So somebody that was doing something pioneering would be the first three categories Jennifer talked about. What I'll talk about is there's two others. One is Long Service Award. Not everyone can be a leader in that sense, and I often joke around because extroverts are so often rewarded and introverts aren't. And actually, it would be a horrible world if everyone was an extrovert and everyone was a leader. I really think it would be. So I think it's really nice that we have people that are dedicated, maybe quietly, maybe behind the scenes. They could get the Long Service Award. They may not have pioneered or done anything extra unusual, but it's their steadiness and their loyalty that actually is just as important, and that's a Long Service Award. People who may not necessarily have been a leader, but are long-standing contributors to the development and or delivery of agriculture in the Cayman Islands for 10 years or more. Then the Memorial Scroll is for deceased persons who were leaders, definitely leaders, or notable contributors to the development and or delivery of agriculture in Cayman. Now, early pioneers, there will be a few that are early pioneers that also, of course, will be deceased. I think the differentiation is that they were more of a pioneer than, again, the Long Service, which would be the Memorial Scroll and the Long Service Award.
Okay. Just to give some folks out there who may be listening and might not be too sure exactly what we mean by pioneer as such, particularly as it relates to agriculture. Like today, one of today's pioneers may be somebody who started to farm, let's say, produce that nobody had ever tried before, or that Cayman is not, not normally grown in Cayman, but they've managed to actually farm it in Cayman and make a living from it. Would that be an example of one of today's pioneers?
Yeah, or somebody who did that prior to 1960 would be an early pioneer.
Right.
And those are the sorts of things that we're looking for. We're looking for people who have done something out of the ordinary or something different or something that was leading edge at the time that they did it. So yeah, it's definitely somebody like the first person who did a particular crop or the first person who did a particular livestock.
Right.
Those would be the sorts of people that we're looking for the public to nominate.
Okay. And again, you said it's on January 25th, which is a national holiday, so you want people to come out, of course. Again, the nomination period ends at the end of September, but you're hoping to get as many people involved in nominating folks. So we really want to reach out to people out there and encourage them to nominate, because you don't want to have to extend it, right? You want to be overwhelmed with the number of nominations that you get in. So let's talk about the actual day and some of the things that may be happening on that day. I know every year you incorporate new things, but what typically happens on that day for those who may want to attend?
Well, it's a fantastic day. It really is full of pomp and circumstance. It's an incredible opportunity for us to celebrate our country and the people who make it the amazing place that it is. Melanie Sims in the protocol office are responsible for organizing the day. They put together a great lineup of people to entertain us through the course of the ceremony. We recognize the people who are getting the Pioneer Awards. And then there's usually a social activity afterwards. And it's a great event for the whole family to come out and enjoy. It's a really lovely morning. And it's where you get to come and see. It's kind of like the Oscars. We get to, the envelope, please, and you'll see who's actually being recognized on the day. And the other thing that you can get when you come to Heroes Day is the commemorative poster. So the last few years we've been putting together with the team at the National Archives and GIS. They put together commemorative posters that have some of the history, some of the background around the theme for that year's Heroes Day.
Right.
So another reason to come out is to make sure that you get one of those commemorative posters because they're incredibly informative, and the team at GIS do a great job putting them together. They're really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure our graphics department will be happy to hear that. So Nancy, you are on the committee, and it is an early start to some, but it really takes a lot of work for this to happen. So take us a little bit back and lead us forward to where we are today and the amount of work that's actually gone into planning this.
Sure. After one Heroes Day goes by, we immediately, a couple of months later, start planning the next one. So we meet every month first as a committee, and then we meet quite regularly after the nomination period has closed. And what it is people are really looking critically because, if everyone was a hero or everyone was a pioneer, it would water down what that actually means. So there's a certain limit. Sometimes we sort of look at 75. Of course, sometimes more might come through. But there's a limit because, these are people have to be celebrated for doing something extra special, for pioneering things. So we meet quite frequently. It involves calls in for the person on the BRAC if they can't be in for the Sister Islands in person. And there's a lot of background work, and we find out a lot of stories, which actually then someone from the National Archives is on the committee, which actually they can then develop as well. We had all sorts of stories with the health one, and I'm sure with agriculture we will as well. And then you have to call and you have to find out where people are, and you find sometimes Caymanians that have lived abroad and they have family then abroad, and so it also ties us all together as a nation as well with Caymanians that have gone abroad. So it's really an interesting process.
Wow. Well, it's great stories to hear about. We're going to take another break here on For the Record. We're going to actually do a news now, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Stay with us. And welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Donna Bush in for Orit Connor this Monday morning. Again, For the Record is brought to you by FinCor, that's Finance and Corporate Services Cayman, as well as Digicel Top Up. So we'd like to thank the two sponsors for, of course, supporting For the Record each day here at Radio Cayman. If you're just joining us, we're joined this morning by two lovely young women from the Ministry of Health, Sports and Culture, Ms. Jennifer Hearn and Mrs. Nancy Bernard. We've been talking about National Heroes Day, and we just want to remind our listeners out there how they can get in their nominations for pioneers and others within the agriculture industry for National Heroes Day that's going to be taking place in January 25th of 2016. So ladies, let's just to wrap up that subject, let's remind folks out there where they can get their nomination forms, how they can send them in, so on and so forth.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, the nomination period is from now until September 30th. The nomination forms are available on our ministry's website, which is www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky. You can also send us an email at nhd@gov.ky. The nomination forms can also be picked up in the front of the Government Administration Building at reception there, and they're also available in the post offices. We also had an insert that came out in the Cayman Reporter last week, so hopefully people picked them up there as well. So just to encourage everyone, please take a few minutes. When you see the nomination form, you'll see there's not a lot of information that's required. It shouldn't take you a lot of time. But do take a few minutes and nominate somebody that you think is deserving of recognition for their contribution in agriculture.
All right. Thank you so much. So we're going to be talking now about the annual health conference that takes place every year. For those who may not be familiar about with the actual conference and how long it's been going on, give us a bit of a background on what it is.
Okay, well, yeah, the annual healthcare conference is coming up at the end of October. It's our 6th conference, which I can't believe we've been doing it for that long. And the dates, so everybody can mark their calendars, is Thursday, October 29th to Saturday, October 31st.
Okay.
And it's going to be at the Ritz-Carlton again this year. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers coming, and the theme this year for this year's conference is Embracing Emerging Trends.
Okay. So is this open to anyone?
Yeah, it's actually a free event, which is fantastic, which means, price isn't an issue if people can't afford to come. And as a result, last year we had over 800 persons. I think it is one of the largest annual conferences in the Cayman Islands. It dwarfs a lot of the other ones that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the focus this year is on emerging trends, and there's quite a lot of them that always come up every other year. Palliative care is one, allied health care, end-of-life decisions, including do not resuscitate, mental health issues, and basically planning healthy communities, going beyond the personal health, but also the health of how the environment can affect our human health. So it's going to be very, very exciting.
And it is really, it's open to everybody. It's not just for healthcare providers. The speakers who are coming knowing that in the audience will be all of the stakeholders. So patients, healthcare providers, insurance companies, business people. It's really something for everybody at the conference.
Now, I know that this is a big conference, and as Nancy mentioned, it dwarfs a lot of the others or all of the others that happen here every year. Do you find that speakers from year to year want to come back, or do you have to really dig deep and find new speakers, a lot of new speakers every year?
Well, we have new speakers every year. Because the subjects change, we have a different theme every year.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do have every year is the speakers saying they wish they could come back. And if we want them to come back, they'd be happy to come back. And we've had fantastic support from our sponsors as well. One of the reasons, the only reason that we're able to offer this free of charge is because we've had tremendous support from our sponsors. And certainly every year at the end of the conference, at least, one of the sponsors comes right away and says, put me on the list next year. I'm definitely on board for next year. We've had Tenet Healthcare. They're a Premium Plus sponsor and have been for a few years now, and we're really grateful for the support that they give us. But we've also got some other premium sponsors. Iron Shore Pharmaceuticals, they're a new sponsor this year.
Okay.
The Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, DART, BAF Insurance, and Tower have all come on board as premium sponsors as well. So it is definitely, we have had a lot of support from them. We've had repeat sponsors who've come year after year. And certainly, as I said, the speakers that have come, especially when we have the international speakers, some of them, it's their first time visiting the Cayman Islands. And they come for the conference and they get an opportunity to spend a little bit of time exploring, and they all talk about how they want to come back.
I bet. So, Nancy, when one walks into the healthcare conference, they get to hear the various speakers, of course. Is any of it interactive at any point?
Yes, well, Jennifer can talk more about that because she pulls together a lot of the actual events that take place.
Okay.
But I know for our experience, whenever you walk in, there's just a buzz of activity. It's a real place that you can stop at various booths and get information. And the thing about health is one only has to have a common cold to realize how important health is to everybody and every one of us right now. Health is number one. If we don't have our health and food and shelter, then we can't, build up to the other things. So I think it's really important for everyone to come. And oftentimes it's one retired couple that I see there every year, and they're always there, and they get their goodie bags, and they make sure they go and listen to the latest things that are coming out in the healthcare field.
Right.
So yeah, Jennifer could probably talk a little bit more about the workshops and other things.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and we do have exhibitors that are on board. And as Nancy said, you walk into the conference and everybody's got some fantastic information. There's some fun giveaways. We have a health check station where people can go and have a quick health check on their numbers, their blood pressure and so on. So there's that aspect of it. But one of the other features of the conference is the workshops,
Right.
the facilitated discussions that we have. And that's an opportunity for the delegates to get involved and to make suggestions and recommendations to the ministry regarding particular topics and themes. So this year we have 3 different workshops that people can choose to participate in. The first one is Beyond Medicine, taking a look at non-medical therapies. And that's where we're looking at the options beyond traditional medical treatment, including things like music therapy and acupuncture, and talking about whether the non-medical therapies are effective, and also debating the big question about who should pay for these alternative therapies. So that's the first workshop. The second one is end-of-life decisions, some of the most important things to consider. This is an area that we're seeing more and more people want to talk about, need to put some things in place. And one of the things about end-of-life decisions is, they're not easy to make, but they're so important. And having the right conversations with those around you, including your healthcare provider, your family, and your friends, will help give people the peace of mind as they make those important decisions. So this workshop will review end-of-life decision-making options, including do not resuscitate or DNRs, hospice, and the ethics behind those decisions. So that'll be a really interesting conversation. And then the last workshop is about mental health, and its title is Mental Health, Let's Talk About It.
Wow.
Almost 1 in 5, statistically, globally, 1 in 5 adults face some sort of a mental health problem. So this is a conversation that we think we need to have. We need to look at, embrace it, address it, look at removing the stigma. And it's one of the things, too, is, who is responsible for helping address these mental health issues? And again, like the first one, who should pay? For these services. So those are the 3 workshops that we have, and they're different subjects this year. Some years we've had the workshops cover the same topic, just breaking up the delegates into different rooms. But this year we've got the 3 different workshops, so people can choose which one is most interesting to them, which one they want to come out and talk about, and which one they want to sort of kick around some ideas and make some recommendations up to the ministry. Because we take away from these workshops the things that the public or the delegates have come to the table with, and it does inform us in terms of some of our work plans and things that we need to address going forward. So again, it's non-medical therapies, the end-of-life decisions, and mental health. Those are the 3 workshop themes for this year's conference.
Well, for me, mental health is something that jumps out at me, and I think it would for many people here in Cayman. I have a grandmother who has Alzheimer's, and that's one of the things that falls under mental health. So it'll be interesting. Do you think that folks who may have parents that are suffering or grandparents who are suffering from Alzheimer's, and it's in the data shows that there's more and more people that are because they are seniors, so they're getting to that stage of life, so on and so forth. Do you think they'll get a lot of answers at attending a workshop like this?
I think that at the very least, what you'll do is probably meet some other people who are dealing with the same problems that you are.
Right.
Find out a bit more about some of the resources that they might know about that you don't, that are available to help you better care for your loved ones and to help you as the caregiver cope. Some of those discussions would probably be happening around that table for sure.
Okay. So where, I know you have an outline or an agenda for, all the various days and exactly who's going to be speaking and so on and so forth. Where would folks be able to go to find out about those?
Well, there's a website for the conference, which is www.healthcareconference.ky. And I should say, actually, registration is open.
Okay.
Registration has opened. While it's free to attend, we really need you to register in advance so that we can make sure we save a spot for you.
Right.
And then there's also a Facebook page for those of you on social media, which is Cayman Healthcare Conference. So if you go on Facebook and like it, you'll get updates from the Facebook page too.
Oh, that's wonderful. Nancy or even Jennifer, do you think a conference like this really helps Cayman on a regional level? I mean, do we stand out as far as healthcare is concerned in this aspect or across the board?
I think there have been a few things, for instance, the medical tourism thrust recently. I think there have been a few things where Cayman has actually been standing out a lot in healthcare. But I think these kind of conferences delve into, the academic, the research, pushing the limits, seeing what's new. And whenever you have a conversation, especially when it includes not just academia, but also the practitioners and the members of the public, you're bringing everyone together, all the stakeholders in one space. And it's a really good idea to bounce ideas off each other. And what I found with the Ministry of Health is we're really probing all the time. We're not waiting for things to happen. We're being proactive. So, for instance, people are living longer, and so we have to look at end-of-life issues. And instead of waiting until something comes up and someone wants to do something there's no legislation for, we're saying, well, what can we do? Can we pull together another ethics group and sort of meet about this and talk about this? So it's really exciting. And I love the tie-ins again with the cultural heritage here. For instance, the first topic Jennifer mentioned on the workshop with sort of not mainstream medicine, and that brought to mind the bush medicine and the fact that that kept us healthy for so long before we had other things available here, and that is coming back in a bit. A friend of mine went and got some strong back tea for me the other day, quite the other day ago, and I need to get some more because that really helped.
Well, that's nice to hear. So every year you have hundreds of people, excuse me, who register and attend. How far-reaching is is it just local folks that you find, or do you find people actually? Some people may fly in.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more every year, more people coming in for the conference. Our sponsors, a lot of our sponsors come because they're exhibitors, but they're starting to bring more people with them. And we do have people who have come just to come to the conference. It's a great opportunity for them to come, and it is, as far as I'm aware, the only one of its type in the region.
Right.
So, and for the healthcare providers, it's an opportunity for them to get their continuing medical education credits that they need to do to maintain their registration with their various councils, and so it's a great opportunity for them too.
Okay. Do you guys have enough hands on deck when it comes to the actual days of the conference, or are you seeking volunteers maybe for the event to actually help out and maybe do some of the smaller things like seat gas, all those types of things?
Well, I have to say that we have a fantastic crew.
Okay.
Between the Health Services Authority staff that volunteer and the folks at Tower who basically coordinate and put the conference together. So I think if anybody wants to get involved, the way to get involved is to come along and attend the conference.
All right. And good morning, Cayman. It's Donna Bush in for Oric Connor this Monday morning. If you're just tuning in or you've been with us, you'll know that we have some lovely ladies here from the Ministry of Health, Sports and Culture joining me this morning on the show. They are Ms. Jennifer Ahern and Mrs. Nancy Bernard. We've been talking about everything from National Heroes Day that's taking place next year, January 25th. That's again in 2016, as well as the healthcare conference that's coming up in October. So, ladies, again, thank you for joining us here on For the Record this Monday morning. We were talking about the healthcare conference and some of the various workshops that are going to be taking place, but there's a long list of various topics that'll be discussed and touched on during that conference. So let's talk a little bit more about those, Jen.
Okay, yeah, well, as I said earlier, the theme for this year's conference is embracing emerging trends. So we're really looking at things that are sort of up and coming, things that are evolving within healthcare. And I just want to remind everybody, too, that the conference is for everybody. So it's not just for the doctors or the nurses or the healthcare providers. There's something for everybody at the conference. And so just to encourage people to come out. The focus this year, in terms of the emerging trends that we've identified that we'll have speakers coming to discuss, are palliative care, allied health care, end-of-life decisions such as DNR, mental health, and then planning healthy communities. Now, I'm particularly excited about the planning healthy communities subject with my background, and also because it's a subject that I think we all really need to understand the connections between our health, our built environment, and the opportunities that we have to try and make a healthier environment for ourselves, and just to sort of connect those dots for everybody. So we have a speaker who's coming, who's a specialist in this particular area of planning healthy communities. He's actually the speaker on the opening night, and I'm really excited that he's going to be coming because he has he's written some really interesting papers. He's done a lot of really interesting work in the States, looking at healthy communities and how we can better facilitate them, and what the steps are that we can take. So if there's anybody out there listening who's in the area of architecture or development or planning, just to encourage them to please make sure that they do come out. And you can register. When you register for the conference, you can register just for one of the days or for all 3 days. So if you can't manage to stay with us for the full time of the conference, you just want to come and hear a particular speaker or so on, you can just register for those days. So the Planning Healthy Communities one is on the opening night, which is Thursday, the 29th of October, and it's in the evening. So the first session is an evening session. So registration starts at 5 and the session starts at 5:30 on the 29th. So that's one of the subjects that I'm really excited about.
And it's free.
Yeah. It's funny that you mention healthy communities, though, because when we think of those, there isn't really those type of communities don't exist in Cayman. I mean, you find people usually like in their 60s now that are saying, oh, I'm going to move to Florida, or I'm going to move, somewhere where they have, gated communities for seniors only, or for, persons who want to be able to be self-sufficient, but just have friends around and so on and so forth. So how important do you think that subject is going to be for our future? Is that where we need to go?
Absolutely. I do. And it's the sort of things like looking at putting things in place to encourage us to be more active, to be more healthy. Something really simple like sidewalks is one of the things that, we've had some people locally talking about it more and more. And the way that we develop our physical development, so walking to get a gallon of milk rather than having to get in your car and drive to the parking lot, or
Yes.
to the make the distance closer so that it is more walkable. Looking at things as well, like where health services are located within the community, looking at whether we need to have some community-based services. We do have our district health clinics, which are fantastic. So it's just looking at it more holistically and recognizing the linkages between our built environment and our health.
What about workplace wellness? Because as we know, the top companies throughout the world all make it easier for their employees to be able to work out at work, be able to move around a lot more. So is that one of the things that you think is going to be touched on when it comes to this, or is that a whole separate?
Well, that was actually the theme of the conference 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and was a fantastic discussion. But it is one of the sort of common threads, I think, that we will continue to see. The deputy governor within the civil service has launched his wellness committee, and I know that when we were doing the conference on workplace wellness 2 years ago, we were seeing more and more some of the private sector companies sort of embracing it and incentivizing wellness for their employees.
Right. So what are some of the other subjects that are going to be talked about at the conference that, of course, they're all going to be interesting to someone who will be attending, or people who will be attending. But Nancy, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think you touched on mental health earlier. I think that's one of the things we need to, and Jennifer said, 1 out of 5 report or being treated for something along the lines of mental health. And if you think of the fact that, we have our physical health, mental health, and spirituality. We have to take care of all aspects of our being. If we don't, if we let down one area, the others will probably suffer as well. And there's still a lot of stigma about talking about it, and it shouldn't be. It should be that just somebody who's seeking treatment for something along the lines of their mental health and well-being, just in the same way you wouldn't mock someone who'd broken a leg or who has diabetes and perhaps has had to lose a limb or something. You would never mock someone like that, so why would we make fun of people, who are, suffer from some mental health issue? And I think we have a way to go with that, because we still do, and it's not just unique to Cayman, everywhere around the world. And we just need to really think about the fact that they're a whole person, and we need to start talking about this more. And having this right there on the table will be one way to do it. I'm also super interested in different things like allied healthcare, and we have our first Caymanian art therapist who's just come back, Anne-Marie Gray. She's actually just finished an internship with us. As Jennifer mentioned, we have music therapists, and I think even a drama therapist now. So, there are ways that we're using the arts to enter the healthcare, because it is a holistic thing.
Right.
And one of the things I'm interested in is neighborhoods, keeping a space available that you can have a park or a workout area, a basketball court or something that persons can come together out of their house, out of watching TV on the sofa, and interact.
Okay. Getting back to the subject of mental health, though, and the fact that you were saying how some people still don't get it, and they're still so cruel to people who may be suffering from mental health, but haven't spoken to psychologists and psychiatrists. Myself, on a professional level, I mean, mental health. There's such a wide spectrum of mental health. Who has never gotten depressed before? It's a form of mental health, even though it may be periodic. It just happens for a short time, but if you've suffered from depression, you've had a mental health issue. I mean, who so if you think of it from that aspect, then I think certainly people will be a lot more a lot nicer and a lot kinder to persons.
I think so. And I mean, we're all mothers, so we can have a laugh about the fact that we're probably slightly neurotic sometimes, or anxious. I know I am.
Postpartum depression.
Sometimes
I've had postpartum depression, so it's and it's all it's incredible how wide that spectrum is, and it's not just for people who you see maybe walking the streets or maybe
Absolutely.
talking to themselves or whatever the case may be. It could be.
It's a sliding scale, so we just need to talk about it more, just like we are now.
Yeah, and Dr. Mark Lockhart, who's the chair of the Mental Health Commission, is a speaker at the conference.
Oh, he's wonderful.
So he'll be coming and giving us an overview of the mental health situation in the Cayman Islands. The Ministry and the Mental Health Commission have been doing a lot of work and putting a lot of focus on mental health in the last few years. The Mental Health Commission is a brand new, well, I guess they're not brand new now, they've been around for more than a year, commission that has been formed to basically advocate. They have a number of roles. They're an appellate body. They oversee when patients are committed through the mental health law and held involuntarily and so on. But they also have an advocacy role. And they've been working really hard to sort of facilitate the conversations. They've been doing a lot of really well-received training with some frontline responders like the police, like social workers, and I think they've done some training with teachers in terms of sensitization towards mental health issues, what to look out for, what are some of the things that you need to do. But I think it's definitely something that we do need to talk about. And we do need to talk about more and recognize that every one of us is going to have somebody that we know, that we love, who's been affected by mental health issues, and looking at how we can sort of make sure that we have the services in place, make sure we have the infrastructure in place, and that we can give them the support that they need. And also for the caregivers, the support that the caregivers need and the resources that they need to be able to better cope and help their loved ones.
So you mentioned Dr. Lockhart, who we all know has been here in Cayman for many years, and he's a wonderful man, and he knows his stuff, right? Anybody else from the outside that's been invited in to speak on mental health this year, or is it just going to be on a local level?
We do have another speaker. I don't actually have the list in front of me at this
No
second,
worries.
but we have a number of speakers coming from overseas,
Okay.
who are experts in their field, as well as the local speakers. So we have some fantastic people coming down and a great lineup of speakers to come. One of the, we're opening, as I said, with the Planning Healthy Communities. Our closing speaker is talking about the 10 big things for the next 10 years in healthcare.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so we've got some really exciting things lined up.
All right. So again, when does it start? When does it end? What's the hours during the day that these talks are going to be happening? And how can people get registered?
All right. Well, again, it's free for everyone, but we do ask that you register so that the Ritz-Carlton knows who to accommodate and what sort of catering we need. But it's the opening night is Thursday, October 29th, and it goes for a couple of days through to Saturday, October 31st. But you don't have to sign up for all of the times. You can come for one or the other as you feel when you see online. You just go to www.healthcareconference.ky, which is the website, in order to register. We also have a Facebook page that you can find, facebook.com/Cayman Healthcare Conference, and then you can get regular updates. We'll be tweeting on the events as well. And the theme again is embracing emerging trends.
All right. So there you have it, the annual National Health Conference that's coming up. Again, you can give these ladies a call if you'd like to. They're in the studio here with us this morning. The number, courtesy of Lime, is 1-800-534-8255, or you can call 949-8037. We're going to take another break here now on For the Record. We'll be back. Please stay with us. And welcome back to For the Record. I'm Donna Bush. Thanks for joining us here this morning on the show, being held here in the Radio Cayman studios in the heart of Georgetown. Joining me this morning are two lovely ladies from the Ministry of Health, Culture and Sports, Miss Jennifer Ahern and Mrs. Nancy Bernard. Ladies, we've talked about the National Heroes Day, celebrations for next year, and getting your nominations in by the 30th of September. We've talked about the annual healthcare conference, the 6th one that's coming up in October. Now we want to talk about solid waste management here in the Cayman Islands. Another big topic, of course, everybody has their opinion, but let's talk about where we're at with the studies and what's happening with that.
Okay, yeah, well, just last week we released the latest study that the consultants have done for us, which was the report on the environmental site conditions of the 3 landfills, the Georgetown landfill, the Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman landfill. So that report is a result of the field work that they did. I hope everybody will remember they were here earlier this year and conducted some site investigations. So this is part of the background work that's required as we go through this process to identify what the preferred project is going to be for the Integrated Solid Waste Management System, or the ISWIMS as we call it.
Okay.
So the landfill site environmental review report is available to the public. It's on our ministry's website, which again is ministryofhealth.gov.ky. And we just want to encourage everybody to take a bit of time and go to the website and take a look at the report. There's the report there. There's also an FAQ sheet that highlights some of the findings of the consultant's work on the landfills. And it's one of those subjects that everybody has been talking about in terms of what's coming out of the landfill, what's there, what are the concerns that we need to be looking at. And so this report is an opportunity for the public to see what the consultants have found in the work that they have done.
For those who may be tuning in this morning, that may not have access to that online report or even a hard copy, was there anything alarming or anything that stood out or surprising that came out of the recent report, particularly as it relates to the Georgetown landfill?
Well, first of all, it's a big report, so there is a bit of a
Right.
synopsis section. And what we're doing is, this is a marathon, not a race. It took several years, several decades for the landfill to get to the state it's in now. And unfortunately, it's because we haven't been looking at waste in an integrated way. So yes, there are some things that we do need to be doing better. The Ministry and the Department of Environmental Health is working actively to, in fact, we've been working very, very hard to meet some of the short-term things to improve operations while we work towards the long-term integrated waste management thing. And I think the key for me to remember in all of this is that it's not just about the dump. It's not just the end product. We are all, as individuals, waste producers. So we all have a stake to play in the integrated approach, which is, how do we divert waste from getting to the landfill? How do we refuse items? How do we reduce our consumption? How do we then, after we reduce, reuse items? And then after we reuse them, recycle, so that the last thing you toss and discard and dispose of should be the very, very, very last thing on the hierarchy. And then you realize that actually, have you done everything you can do before you even dispose of it? There's a family in California that calls themselves the Zero Waste Family, and they have a mason jar. And they've claimed, now I don't know if this is true or not, but it's really interesting. They have a website, you can Google it. And they say that they only throw away the contents of one mason jar approximately for the last couple of years, because everything else they've repurposed, reused, reduced, recycled, and so on. So that's what we're looking at. It's not just fixing the dump. It's an integrated system. And that's why it's taking so long. And we're just asking the public to continue to work with the Ministry of Health, with DEH, so that we can arrive at something. It's going to be a marathon, not a race. It has taken a long time to get to this stage.
Right.
So it's going to take a while for us to look through all the reports, add more, but we are slowly and steadily, we've been working at this for a couple of years now, getting to the point where we can hopefully go out and actually tender something more to solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean, as everybody will be aware, we're required to go through a certain process.
Right.
Under the framework for fiscal responsibility. And it's set up so that we basically assess the project from a holistic perspective before we actually identify and procure it. So it's an opportunity to really have a really robust project. By the time we're ready to go out and procure it, it's been reviewed very thoroughly. There's been, the next step in the process that we're going through is the outline business case, to look at the feasibility of the different project options. So, under the framework for fiscal responsibility, we started off with a strategic outline case, which was basically, it's a situational analysis. It's an overview of what obtains, as Minister Tibbetts often says, in terms of waste management in the Cayman Islands. We've heard a lot of people say, well, there's been all these studies done. Why are you doing more studies? We don't need any more studies. The fact is that we haven't had studies done with the holistic approach that we're required to take now. And the studies that have been done, we've used them. They've been background information that's been fed into this process, and it continues to be used as a reference for the consultants as they do their work. So we did the strategic outline case. One of the big gaps that we identified is that we didn't have a national policy. So we didn't have, I call it our hopes, dreams, and aspirations for waste management. So we were out in July this year with a draft policy for solid waste management, and I'm pleased to report that Cabinet has actually given us approval for that policy. We'll be coming out with the final policy for the public shortly. We've got this review now that is out, the environmental site review. And the next thing will be the strategy, the draft strategy that will be coming out later this month, early October. When we were out with the policy, a lot of people were asking us, where are the details? Where's the meat? Where are we going to see what our targets are for recycling? Are we going to be doing waste to energy? What is it that we're actually looking at doing? And that's the sort of thing that you'll see more of in the strategy document when we bring it out for public consultation. Okay. It'll have the list of shortlisted project options that the consultants have been assessing against the criteria that we've identified, looking at the policy as well as the information that we have, the results of the environmental review, and so on. So the next step that the public can look for, and that we'll be looking to the public for their feedback on, is the draft strategy later this month, early October. This next step after that, of course, is the outline business case. So that's where they will take the project options and put them through an assessment to look at their feasibility from a financial perspective, taking into account all of the information that we've got so far, identifying what the risks might be, what the mitigation might be. And at the end of that process, we should be able to say this is the recommended preferred project option, and that should happen in January.
Okay. So speaking from a local level, let's just say, I'm a homeowner. I want to reduce my carbon footprint or my impact on our local environment. I have my separate containers, one for aluminum or, metals, one for plastic, so on and so forth. Do I still have to go, as it exists today, to the dump and drop those things off, or is my garbage truck able to pick up those things separately? And how does that work currently?
Today there are private service providers that do the glass and the plastic, as well as aluminum, and DEH of course does aluminum and batteries and a whole bunch of things. But if you go to pretty much any of the supermarkets, you'll see those private service providers there, and you can just drop your stuff there. There is no curbside service. Again, as Jennifer said, what we're going to be looking at is sort of a menu of things. So that may be one of them, but it may be more of a depot style where you come and there's a larger service of larger bins, and you come and you place your things there down the line. Right. But we don't know what the end result will look like. It'll be a myriad of things chosen from a menu. So it may be a portion of recycling, a portion of something else, a bit of waste energy. We don't know yet. That's going to be coming out in the shortlist options that the consultants are working on with Mr. Jim Schubert, who's our senior project management expert in solid waste based in Cayman now. But there's everyone who's listening. We're hoping that everyone's doing something now. There are things you can do, and I do bust my children sometimes dropping their things in the wrong receptacle. I say, if you walk 5 feet, you'll make it to the recycling bin. You can do your part. The good news is, actually, Mr. Schubert reminded me, you don't need to worry too much about rinsing everything out too much, because that all comes out in the wash anyway. Right. Clean your things, but you don't have to worry about making them spick and span and using so much water. It offsets the actual savings on the ecology with recycling. But we can all do something now. We all produce the waste that's in that landfill. It's not anybody else's fault. It's each of us.
And that personal responsibility and the role that we as individuals have to play, that's one of the values that came out when we were doing the national policy. And it really is, every one of us has the ability to make some change in what we do that will add up. Small changes can add up to a big change. And we all have to take responsibility for it. This is a problem that we all need to own, and we all have a role to play in helping solve it.
Well, I'm glad that I have the opportunity to talk to you ladies this morning about this, because at one point in the conversation, there was talk of putting a waste management facility in Boddentown. I live in Boddentown. But everybody kept talking about the fact that, we don't want to dump in our backyard. We don't want a landfill in our backyard. For those who may not know, are not educated on the subject, have not traveled to other places in the world, you won't see a solid waste management system or a facility looking like the Georgetown landfill. What you'll see is a building, typically with nice lawn and landscaped area that trucks move in and out of, and everything is recycled and repurposed and whatever the case may be. So the picture that's in a lot of people's mind is, we're going to get another Georgetown landfill. When in fact, that's not what that type of facility is.
Yeah, it will depend on what options we use as we go forward. And the facility I think you're talking about is a waste to energy facility, where it is the situation. The trucks drive in, it's enclosed, they they tip on the floor, gets put in the hopper and put through the system. And when you look at it from the outside, it just looks like a big building. One of the things that we have to remember, though, even with the waste to energy, that there is going to be some component of disposal.
Sure.
We're always going to need some kind of a landfill.
Sure.
It's just that if you employ different technologies like waste to energy, like recycling, if you look at reducing the waste at the get-go, so to speak, then obviously the need for a landfill is dramatically reduced.
Right.
And that's what we're looking to try and come up with, is an integrated system that looks at all of the different opportunities that we have to reduce, reuse, recycle, and that the last option is dispose.
Right. All right. So anything more that you'd like to discuss is going forward as far as this particular subject is concerned? Again, our callers can give us a call if you have any questions or comments for these ladies this morning on this subject. It's 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037 as we get ready to wrap up in a little bit.
Yeah, but you did ask a bit about what the findings were
Yes.
of this latest report, the environmental site report. And I think the message that we have is that while we have things of concern, because obviously it is a landfill, it's not as bad as a lot of people might have expected it to be.
Okay.
It's not a situation, we didn't have the results of these studies didn't come back suggesting that there was something that was sort of verging on catastrophic that we all needed to act extremely quickly on, not to say that there isn't an urgency to make sure we address the issues, but just that the findings of the studies that they have done are not as doomsday, I guess, as some people might think, which is a reason but I would encourage everybody to take a few minutes and read for themselves to see what the findings were, I think.
Right.
Maybe Nancy wants to speak.
Yeah, I
bit
could speak to a couple of them. And the good news is when you look at the chart, a few of them, there's maybe one or two out of the half the sort of dozen of them that are high, a high risk to deal with. The rest of them are low to moderate. So there was maybe one or two that we know we have to deal with better immediately, and we're taking immediate steps to do that. One of the things is the oil disposal in one of the Sister Islands landfills, so we have to be careful with that. There's obviously nuisance for adjacent residents with odour, and also, of course, landfill fires. We had a spate of them early last year, and we have to be careful. And so obviously it's all tied in because all the tires that are there are a hazard both for breeding mosquitoes and for catching fire. And so what we'd like to do is address that, and we've gone out to bid again and wrapping that process up. And very concerted effort to wrap that process up soon. There's also hydrogen sulfide from sediments contaminated by various sources, including the landfill, as well as nuisance from odour in the landfill from the adjacent commercial industrial site users as well. We'll experience some of that. Some of the groundwater and surface water showed hydrocarbons from spills and overtopping. So again, some of the things we're looking at improving is the capping process, and some of that is looking at where we're getting the fill material. And so there's a lot of technical things to do with the landfill improvements, but I think the ministry is working very closely with DH now in the last couple of years to ensure that the right budget is there. You'll have noticed new garbage trucks driving around. So we're making sure that they have the correct equipment and the budget needed to handle these issues as soon as possible.
Okay. I know there's been concern about maybe leaching into the North Sound and our breeding ground, which is our breeding ground for our fish, our marine life. Was there anything in there that could, I guess, because a lot of people are fearful about it and they've spoken publicly about that. Is there anything in there that speaks to that?
I think that they did do some sampling of the canal that runs closest to the landfill by the North Sound, and I think they did find some ammonia and some metals in the canal water. But I think the risks, as Nancy mentioned, most of the risks that they've identified are either low or moderate, and so it's something that she said we're looking at addressing a lot of these things, and that's another thing I think I'd like to remind everybody. It's not a situation where the Department of Environmental Health is not doing anything about making any improvements while we're waiting for the results of these studies to be done. The department is working very hard to identify some operational improvements that they can make on an ongoing basis to improve the way that we are working with our solid waste. We have recently acquired a number of pieces of landfill equipment that we're really helping with things like the compactor. So one of the reasons that we are, I'm going to knock on wood, haven't seen a landfill fire recently is because we're doing a much better job with compacting the waste, which helps mitigate the risk of fire.
And you can see the landfill actually going down.
So-
It's gone down significantly. I mean, I see it.
That's fantastic. Maybe from our vantage point out the window.
Yes, I've seen it gone down. All right, well, ladies, we're going to take a break for another news break here on For the Record. And welcome back to For the Record. I have Miss Jennifer Ahern and Mrs. Nancy Bernard from the Ministry of Health, Culture and Sports with us this morning. They've been talking about National Heroes Day as well as the annual healthcare conference that's coming up in October, as well as the solid waste management solutions that are being looked at, as well as the reports. If you're just joining us, you can give us a call as we get ready to wrap up our talk here this morning on For the Record. You can call us at 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037 to get in your questions or your comments before we wrap up. So, ladies, we've talked about these three very important subjects that falls under the Ministry of Health, Sports and Culture. Let's go over some of the things that we were talking about for those who may just be tuning in. And let's begin with National Heroes Day, which takes place next year.
Yes.
Months away. It's really months away.
Yeah, it's on the horizon. But it's January 25th, 2016. And we are now looking for nominations from the public to honor our pioneers in agriculture. So we talked about the definition, the science and practice of farming, including the growing of crops and the rearing of animals to provide food, fiber, and other products used to sustain and enhance human life. So we're asking the public to help us by nominating somebody that they believe is deserving of recognition for their contribution in agriculture. We've got the 5 categories: the early pioneer, the pioneer, emerging pioneer, the Memorial Scroll, and the Long Service Award. And it won't take too long to make a nomination. And I think Nancy mentioned, don't assume that someone else is going to nominate the person that you have in mind.
Right.
Everybody, I'm sure, as we're discussing this, is thinking, oh, I know that so-and-so should definitely be recognized. And make sure you take the time. It won't take too much time to make a nomination, because we do find that, if you assume that someone else is going to do it, sometimes it doesn't happen.
Right. And of course, you have just a certain amount of heroes that you're going to actually recognize. So the earlier you get them in, the better chance your nominee will probably be selected.
Right. We're looking for the pioneers and for Long Service Award. And we just hope that everyone just, nominates as many people as they can. And this is a month to do it. And time flies. So don't wait too long.
All right. So let's move on to the 6th annual healthcare conference that's going to be taking place in October. Tell our listeners out there a little bit about that in case they're just tuning in.
Well, again, it's October 29th to 31st. So if you haven't done so, mark your calendar. And it will be held at the Ritz-Carlton. It's free of charge for everyone to attend. And really excited. This year's theme is about embracing emerging trends.
Okay.
Right.
And you got to get registered.
Get registered, and you can do that through the website, which is healthcareconference.ky. And the focus, as Jennifer said, it's on emerging trends, and that's palliative care, allied healthcare, end-of-life decisions such as do not resuscitate, mental health, and planning healthy communities. So a real tie-in into the community lifestyle.
And just again, to encourage everybody to come out and take advantage of this opportunity. We're not just looking for the healthcare providers. This is a conference that you can get information, parents, children, or parents and patients and employers. And I was mentioning earlier, because we do have a speaker on planning healthy communities, those people in the development industry as well, just to encourage them to come out. That speaker will be on the opening night on Thursday, the 29th of October.
Okay. And then we, of course, ended our morning by talking about the solid waste management reports and systems and what's happening, where we're at, what stage we're at with that process as it relates to landfills here in the 3 Cayman Islands. So let's just kind of recap that.
And as we were talking about, we have been working steadily through the process that's required under the framework for fiscal responsibility to really look at the different options, get a holistic approach to identifying what the best solution is for an integrated solid waste management system for the Cayman Islands. The most recent report that has been released was released last week. It's on our ministry's website, which is www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky. And you can also like our Facebook page. Nancy would be very cross if I was remiss in reminding people about that. So if you're on Facebook, please do like our page so you can get some updates on it. But the report that's out now is the latest report from the consultants, which is the environmental site report for the 3 landfills, the Georgetown landfill, the Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman landfills.
Mm-hmm. And obviously for our listeners out there who may not have access to a website or a computer, get someone to print off and bring you a hard copy of any of these things, or help you to get registered for the annual conference, or to nominate your national hero, or to read the reports that are out now on the integrated solid waste management system.
Yeah.
So any final words from you ladies while we wrap up here?
Just that it's always a pleasure being here at Radio Cayman, and we always have so much to talk about at the Ministry of Health and Culture, and we're just incredibly excited about all of these projects and continue to push to make sure that we leave things, as Jennifer says, better than we find them, and make things better for the community. Yeah,
and just thanks again for having us. It's always fun to be on air with you guys, and again, just to really encourage people, we really need the public to get involved with Heroes Day.
Mm-hmm.
This is an opportunity to nominate people who, the unsung heroes in the area of agriculture. Most of these people aren't doing it for the fame and the glory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an opportunity to really recognize those people who have made significant contributions and have made a difference. But as we were saying, there is a finite time limit on this. You need to make sure your nomination gets in before the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
nhd@gov.ky is our email if you want to send us a message, and we can send you the form. Check the ministry's website, but you can also pick up a form in the post offices and the government administration building. Also, on the healthcare conference, everybody should take advantage of it. It's a fantastic opportunity to come out and learn a bit more about health.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme, as we said, is embracing emerging trends. So that's October 29th to the 31st at the Ritz-Carlton. Registration is now open. It's free to the public, but you need to register. And you can register on the conference website, which is healthcareconference.ky.
Mm-hmm.
So please do get on board with that. Come out and hear some of the fantastic speakers that we have lined up. And then again, please, we need the public to get involved and help us as we move forward with the integrated solid waste management system. Read the report. There's an FAQ if you don't want to read through the entire report. It's kind of long. There is an FAQ on the website as well, and we'll be back out at the end of the month, early October, with the draft strategy, looking for people to give us some feedback on the short list of project options and some of the things in the national strategy that's being proposed. So www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky is the website. Like our Facebook page as well, so you can get some updates there as well, and just stay tuned. And as Nancy said, we've got a lot going on and lots to talk about, but we're really grateful for the public getting involved with all of these initiatives with us.
All right, Jennifer and Nancy, it's always a pleasure for you guys to be here with us on For the Record. And to our listeners out there, of course, always thank you for being here with us, and we hope you tune in again on Wednesday of this week. Until then, goodbye for now.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.